Good afternoon, Tom Ginn, Elevate Your Profits. I'm going solo tonight. Mark Gassert, my partner in Elevate Your Profits, it has a commitment in umpiring some youth baseball. Had a conflict in scheduling. So tonight, it's strictly myself and Elevate Your Profits. Our platform is all about helping budding entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs, business people, good quality information from all walks of life and business, and everything from traditional brick and mortar businesses to network marketers to authors, people that have value to help you grow your business. Or if you're looking to get into business, what you should be looking for. Tonight, the guest I'm bringing in tonight, I'm really excited to introduce my guest here in a moment. I met Andrea at a networking group, and that's how we established that relationship. She shared what we do, and I said, you're going to be perfect for our audience because a lot of people don't understand public relations. And so she's going to come in tonight and share with her journey, what she's doing. She's an entrepreneur. She started her own company in around public relations. So I'm really excited to bring on Andrea Pass. So Andrea, are you ready to come on? Hello, Andrea.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So what I like to do is just sort of, just share with a little bit about, where you're from, your background, your family, whatever you'd like to do on that side, your journey from traditional corporate public relations and what you did on the East Coast and West Coast. And, just give people an idea of your background. And we'll drill a little deeper what public relations is as we go through it. So it's all yours, Andrea.
So it's whatever I want to say.
That's
a great thing. So I've always been the publicity chair. I was always that person back in high school and college that was writing the press releases and putting them in an envelope and mailing them to the newspapers and calling and seeing if they got the press release and hanging posters around town. So I was constantly publicizing events and activities. And the same held true when I went to college, where I was studying radio, TV, film, because I was going to be a broadcast journalist. I was going to be the next Dan Rather. Okay, so for people who are younger, they're thinking, who is that? But for people of my generation, he was number one, and I wanted to be number one in broadcasting. But throughout my entire college career, I was still the PR chair of every committee. So even though I was studying broadcasting and broadcast journalism, and I was the news director of WGLS-FM, the voice of Gloucester County, and I was in college radio, the whole 9 yards. When I got out of college and put on my little navy blue suit with my little brown briefcase that had my initials engraved in it, and went to CBS in New York City. And in those days, every woman had to take a typing test. Yes, a typing test. So there was a freeze in the broadcast area. I got a job in the magazine division at CBS at Woman's Day magazine and was promoted from an administrative assistant within 5 weeks. And I was doing advertising, trafficking, and layout for Woman's Day magazine until the freeze lifted in broadcast. And I got a job doing PR for the CBS radio division nationally. And I loved it. I was writing press releases. I was pitching stories. I was on site with special guests, etc. And had an opportunity to interview to be one of Dan Rather's assistants. And got called out to a second interview and said, I don't want to be anyone's assistant. And that was my aha moment at that point, that I said, but I love public relations. Why would I switch to do something that maybe I don't love? And I realized I also didn't want to travel the globe and have my whole world revolve around work. And I realized with public relations, I can have a career and a white picket fence at the same time. And I realized that I wanted to be married and have children and have friends and family and be involved in nonprofits and other things. And I can do that with a career in public relations. And so I went into the PR end of things, stayed at the CBS radio division for a few years, went over to the agency side and worked at a number of PR agencies in New Jersey, where I'm from. And then I worked for a PR firm in LA. I worked remotely. And 3 years ago, an opportunity presented itself. And lo and behold, Andrea Pass Public Relations was born. And I've never been happier.
Wonderful. I just really appreciate anybody that recognizes their passion for what they do and their purpose, and you making that leap to go into your own.
Yeah, I think that it's so funny because you look back over your career, and so many times over the years, I had clients and colleagues, Andrea, go out on your own, go out on your own. And I was so nervous. Maybe I won't be able to do this. Maybe I won't be good at it. Maybe I'll fail. But you look at that and one of my favorite quotes, failure is not an option. When I went out on my own, I had my first client in 4 days because everyone knows me and people wanted to work with me. And I had a full bevy of clients from people referring other people to me. And 3 years in, it's great. It's great. I have wonderful clients. I meet new people all the time, and I'm always open to new clients.
Am I getting some feedback here on you or not?
I don't hear anything on my end.
Okay, it must be on my end here, so I can zone that out. I just want to make sure that we're not getting reverb with technology. That's one of the challenges sometimes we have is sometimes we get a little noisy sometimes. But what I'd like to do is so you're in the East Coast, you're in New Jersey. Share with people what public relations. There's two sides of public relations, the way I understand it. One is the promotional side, building your brand. And then there's a public relations that most businesses and individuals don't want to get into is damage control. Do you do damage control or you do all the positive stuff?
I have done crisis communications over my career. And one quick story, I had a client of mine who was imprisoned on tax evasion. And he had to go before the New York court system. And I had to physically be with him. I had my press statement. English was not his first language. I had to explain to him what we were going to do, that press was going to be there, and how he had to have his appearance, his demeanor, and how I would be answering the questions. And when we got out of the courtroom, I was actually, and you see this on TV, I was the PR person blocking the press from getting a good picture of the client. So it was interesting, crisis communications, to actually be on the scene versus behind the scenes, which I've done when a client had a fire or there was another issue with a product or those kind of crises. But it's not my favorite thing to do. But I've done it when I have to. But I think that overall, public relations is often the most misunderstood of the marketing categories. And I think that people don't quite get that in public relations, there are many different angles to move forward in public relations and why you need it in your business, why you need public relations as part of a marketing mix. And in marketing and in advertising, you talk about yourself. You can write the message. Everyone knows you wrote the message. You control the message. You place your ad in this magazine or on this show or on this site. And it's an ad that you wrote. In public relations, it's earned media content, which means the journalist is writing about you. The journalist is, in essence, giving you third-party editorial endorsement because they're including you. So by having someone else talk about you, give you that pat on the back or that boost about your business, your product, your service, your book, that's giving you that endorsement to grow your brand, to grow you as a thought leader, and to drive sales. Because how many times do we all search on the internet before we make a purchase to see the reviews? You want someone else talking about you. You can't be sitting there patting yourself on the back with your advertising all the time. So take money out of that ad budget and put it toward public relations to be able to get that quality, trusted coverage.
There's two sides of this, and one we can talk about. What can a person do once they understand the value of building a brand? A lot of people will be looking at this, it's not in my budget to hire a PR person or whatever, but what can people do to leverage public relations in a free market? And what should they be looking for in somebody that can help promote them in public relations or what they should be looking at?
Well, number one, don't assume that you don't have money in your budget for it, because public relations is not as pricey as advertising. So first, speak to someone, speak to a public relations professional and learn more about it before you figure it's not affordable, because it actually is way more affordable. But when you're doing something on your own, I always recommend that you start with your trade organizations, because most likely you are a member of some kind of an organization, and that organization has a magazine, a newsletter, a blog, a podcast. Start with that. Because you're a member, they're going to give you that opportunity to get that free, so to speak, publicity by reaching out to their members. So start with that opportunity and then expand into things that you're reading. If you're also reading and absorbing content that has to do with your category, reach out to those media outlets. Now, obviously, a professional in public relations is going to know the right way to reach out, who to reach out to, how to follow up, how to not overdo it, and how to get the story told. But if you're on that tight budget, start with those local things. Also, remember, a press release is not an end-all, be-all. A press release is somewhat antiquated. I use a press release just to pull information for a pitch. Most journalists are not reading long-form press releases anymore. We are in a world where everyone wants instant information and instant gratification. So keep your message short. It's all well and good to tell your story when you're actually on that show or talking to that reporter, but in writing, short and sweet, 3 messages, the value of 3s is the way to go.
Okay. Because that's an area that, boy, I tell you what, I'm getting some feedback on my side here this evening. I do apologize. I hope no one else is hearing it, but public relations, I think it's overlooked by most business people. Would you agree?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Public relations, do you think that's a missing element for most business people?
1,000,000%, because they immediately feel, okay, I can't afford it, or I don't want to devote the time to it. And yet they're trying to figure out, how come my competitor is being quoted? How come my competitor is out there being interviewed? Well, if you're not out there doing the same and having a public relations person, department, committee, what have you, out there telling your story, then how would you expect to be included in that piece? So you're missing out on an opportunity to be part of those estimated 11 hours a day that we're all absorbing content. And a lot of that content is driven by journalists, podcasters, bloggers, not yourself. So I think it's important to realize that no one's going to be writing about you unless you tell them. And I love when someone say, I should have been in that story. Well, how could you be in the story if you didn't know the story was happening? You didn't have a relationship with the producer or the writer or what have you. So it's the job of a public relations person to also make your business bigger by having an outside PR person. And you can be a solopreneur, but if someone is representing you and you get an email or a phone call, oh, I'm going to forward you to my publicist. Perception is reality. It makes you bigger. It makes you more important. And it's someone like me who's making sure that that journalist or podcaster or producer has the correct information. Your name is correct, your website, your social media pages to be tagged, things that are going to help you to grow your business and to stay relevant. So because you might have had a story in your local daily newspaper 6 years ago means absolutely nothing today. You need to have current press that you can reuse and reuse and reuse. So I always tell my clients, post this today, it appeared today, post it again in 6 weeks and again in 3 months, maybe 6 months, because if there's no date on it, you can use it for a while. You just can't use something that might have a date from the 1980s.
Right. So with regard to public relations, boy, I tell you, I'm getting some really bad feedback. That's bothering me. I have to apologize, Andrea.
Yeah, I don't have any on my end, so I don't know if you have to change your volume.
Could be. But when a lot of times people think we see like you've put a lot of people on some of the major programs, 2020, ABC's 2020, MSNBC, all these different programs. But people in local markets, where would you point them? Radio or their local TV or podcasters? Where do they start? If a small business person, a solopreneur, whatever the case may be, what would they should be looking for?
I definitely do not recommend starting with television. You have to hone in your message first. So hone in your message on some podcasts. That gives you the practice. You can listen back. You could have others critique you. That might be a good thing to do so that you see, are you getting the correct message across before you go to a TV station? Now, the thing about a TV station is if you don't have a story, they're not going to interview you. And a good public relations person is helping you come up with crafting the right story. So, argument's sake, it's tax season. What are your top 5 tips for best organizing your paperwork for tax time? Or what are some tips to save you on your taxes this year? Okay. Or say it's spring cleaning. What are some tips for getting organized? What do you keep and what do you get rid of? So you have to have an angle to your story. It can't just be, okay, I'm a business person and I am a wellness coach, so I should be on my local TV station. And then there has to be a way that you understand the segment, because an average TV segment is edited down to roughly 3 to sometimes 3.5 minutes. If you don't repeat your message a number of times, your message will be lost. And you don't want to find out later when you're quoted that the quote was not what you wanted it to be. And everything you say when you talk to a journalist is on the record. So start by working with a podcaster and listening back to your interview and having others critique you. So you get the messaging across, because the message is your brand. The brand is your business. Sales is your business.
Right. I do have a question. In your relationship, promoting businesses and people, you also do authors as well, right?
Yes, I work with a variety of authors, both fiction and nonfiction, even children's books. So it's a lot of fun because when you have a book, there's more of an opportunity to get quoted because of the fact that you have a book behind you. Now, it's important. The book can't be 15 years old. You need to have an updated version of that book if it's a nonfiction book, or you have to have a book that's more current. But there are so many outlets covering books or interviewing authors that it's such a pleasure to work with authors, because obviously they've put their whole heart into the story that they've written, or into that nonfiction book that talks about a career or a mental health challenge or what have you. So I love working with authors because there's so many different ways that we could approach public relations and press outreach when it comes to authors.
Okay. So public relations, what would be the first thing I would ask a public relation person for their experience? What am I looking for in a talent like yourself? What would be the things that I should be seeking out?
I think the most important thing is that public relations person understands what your goals are. And that's one of the first questions that I ask a prospective client. What are your goals? Some people, their goals are to stay relevant. That's an important goal to have, because in today's world that's very crowded with content, you want to stand out. Other people might have the goal of securing enough press so that their product will eventually be picked up by a major retailer. I have a client who we got her a lot of press. Eventually, I was able to make a connection for her with a pitch panel for consumer products. And lo and behold, now her products are in HomeDepot.com. And because she had all this press, Home Depot knew that they were getting a solid product that people were already buzzing about. So I'm able to tell that story of a success story from my clients. Also, you don't want to work with a public relations person that tells you, yes, I will get you every single press that you want. Any press person that is guaranteeing you press is not telling you the truth. We cannot guarantee press. We can pitch the press, but you can't guarantee it. What's important to note is if you're looking at Good Morning America or the Today Show or one of these morning shows, there's breaking news. So they might be interested in your story, but it doesn't mean you won't get bumped. It's important to understand. Also, a good public relations person is not going to be tone deaf. There's certain times that you don't reach out to the media. January 6th, you didn't reach out to the media. Anyone who was pitching the media on January 6th, and shame on you, that was not a date to reach out to the media. There are other dates that you see something is breaking in the world, and you don't reach out to the media. That is the job of the PR person, to know when to put on the brakes, when to reach out, and when not to reach out. So when someone's speaking to me, I'm my authentic self. And I think the only way you're going to know if you're making the right decision is if you feel it in your gut. And I had a situation last week who I spoke with someone, and her manager called me later. How did it go? And I said, we're not a good fit. I knew 100%. I said, I'm not going to be able to take this account. We are not the right fit because this person's expectations were unrealistic. And I'm realistic in the expectations. And I say to my clients, give me your top 10 wish list. If it's a perfect world, where would you want coverage to be realistically? And then I'm always aiming for that while I'm securing other press. So I think that when you're researching a public relations person, do your homework. I consider myself a client of mine. So the same way I spend time booking my clients and getting press for them, I make sure I'm getting press for me so I stay relevant. So if you Google me, you're going to see the press that I have gotten and the interviews I've done and the area of expertise. And I could do the same for you as my client.
And with that all said, I'm just going to put this up here. Your contact information for those that want to seek you out after here. So your journey, you talked about that in the beginning. You loved being the one organizing and promoting and all that, and it carried on. You had a big dream to be on broadcast. But in your business, what is your greatest vision and passion that you have for your business? What is it you're calling? I'd like to hear that.
Well, it's interesting because I love what I do. So if you love what you do, you never worked a day in your life. So I think for me, any coverage that I get from my clients that help my clients, I am like a kid in a candy store when those placements come out. No matter what it is, if there's positive coverage of my client, I cannot wait to service that to the client. So my calling is really to work with clients who will appreciate the work that I'm securing for them. But for me, I have to secure something every day, because if I don't secure something for a client every day, I feel that I'm not being successful. And so therefore, I say I'm a PI in PR. I'm a private investigator in public relations. I'm investigating new media outlets, new opportunities for my clients, and therefore I can always have something to show for myself, so the client knows I am working. They never question that.
You know, it's all about getting your clients results, right? In any business, is that you can demonstrate you're getting results. Of all the people, going back in your long career, And I don't expect you to drop names or anything like that, because confidentiality or whatever is involved in your business. You don't have to mention name, but what would be one of the biggest success stories you can say by employing a public relation campaign? What did that look like for somebody? If you're welcome to share whatever you need to share, but what did that look like for somebody from ground zero to explosion? I guess best way to put it.
Well, I think that there are so many successes, but I've represented many consumer products in the as seen on TV category. But wait, there's more. Call now. And so by holding pitchathon events, which was an idea that I had, and it was when Shark Tank was first coming out, we said, you know what? We can do these pitchathon events for inventors and see if any of their products would be appropriate to take to market. So by putting my client out there in different cities and having press coverage, more and more at-home inventors were bringing their products to my client in the hopes that my client would pick up their product. And one of my favorite events was for a company. Can I drop names? Is that okay?
It's totally up to you, whatever.
Yeah. So I work for Top Dog Direct, which is a major marketer of as seen on TV products. And we held a pitchathon event in Philadelphia in the convention center next to the Liberty Bell. It was very, very cool. And we had put out a call for inventors. And we went through the list, and I was picking this fits the category, this doesn't. And we had about 25, 30 people showing up that day out of hundreds who had applied. And the second person there was the dad of 5 or 6 kids, young guy, I think he was in his 30s, who invented something called the Be Active Brace. And it was a knee brace that had little discs that hit your pressure points behind the knee to reduce sciatica. And so he's pitching and the panel's looking, and I'm there with all the press, and the press is covering it. And the panel was like, all right, let me try it on. And they tried it on and already felt a difference in their back by wearing this brace on their knee. They talked to him. The next day, they signed an agreement with him. 4 weeks later, we shot the infomercial. I invited press to come to the infomercial shoot. Within 3 months, his product was in every retailer that you can imagine. He was able to buy a bigger house for his family, a van that fit all of his kids, and be able to grow his physical therapy practice because he needed the funds to do so. So you look at this story that all happened because I was doing a press event, and it changed the lives of this inventor and his family, and it gained a ton of revenue for my client. So I think that you look at those, and I'm just so proud to be able to look at those stories and look at those clients. And it doesn't matter if a client is a big name. For years, I represented Chef Wolfgang Puck. So he's a name, and that was an easier sell. I call up, hi, I'm with Chef Wolfgang Puck. He'll be in town this date. Would you like him on your show? Yes. So it really didn't take as much work to get that as getting other clients featured on national, local, regional television, print, and online.
What a great story about a success. Somebody that had an idea, and you manipulating or massaging and creating the environment. He exploded, and that wouldn't have never happened without a good PR person, in my assumption.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that's important to understand is there's more to public relations than pitch and place. And I do pitch and place, but I'll also arrange speaking engagements or trade show support. We will eventually get back to the day that we have trade shows. And when I'm at the houseware show or the hardware show or whatever trade show, and I'm there on behalf of a client, I'm arranging press meetings in the booth beforehand so they all happen. And then I'm doing grassroots. I'm walking around the convention hall. I know what color the press badges will be, and I am approaching the press in the hallway to tell them about my client and get them over to my client booth. So it's really a pleasure when you're on site with a client and you're doing all of that. But in the meantime, to be able to create other ways for clients to be out there, for authors, for example, to have giveaways of their book, because then other people learn about their book and they might want to write a story about that that book, a review about that book, and someone is reading that. So I think that there are all these opportunities that you have to, and I'm sorry, Tom, I hate that word pivot. I've been saying zig and zag for years, so I'm going to stick with zig and zag, but a good PR person is going to zig and zag to keep your company, your book, your service, your product relevant to ultimately drive sales.
That's the bottom line. And just traditional marketing, I can see what you do fills on the front end and voids in between all the marketing and everything else. And you're there to just hearing you, all the things that you do, that could be overwhelming for an individual. They can't get it off the ground because of all the moving pieces. And having somebody like yourself come in and put all those moving pieces together, it's a win, and takes that burden off and still get a good message out. So I would encourage anybody that has a business that wants to grow it is look into public relations and your contact information. So you work anywhere in the country?
I have clients all over the country. Doesn't matter where you are. I have clients in in New Jersey and in Texas and Washington State and Arizona. And I'll be working with someone soon in Maryland and Florida. It doesn't really matter because I could fly anywhere once this all ends and be with a client, or we could do everything remote, which has really been a blessing right now to be able to do all of this remote and still achieve so much for a client. But I think there's more to understand, because a good public relations person, like I said before, is going to help you with your messaging, but it's also helping you to understand what to wear on an interview. I had a client of mine who was very, very, very pale, and she would wear pale yellow. And I said, you can't wear, you fade into the background. You can't wear pale yellow. And don't wear stripes. They bleed on camera. Don't wear red. It bleeds on camera. Have the right look. I have a client of mine who is lacking in the hair department, and he always puts his glasses on top of his head. And I said, you can't do that. It creates a glare on the top of your head that shows on Zoom or whatever method that we're doing a video interview. So a good public relations person is going to prepare you for the interview. I've had clients who have a thick accent. It's important that they learn to speak slower. I work with them on that. I have clients that get very nervous and miss the point and forget, for instance, to say the name of their book. It's okay. You're doing PR for your book. You've got an interview. Even though the host might say the name of the book at the beginning, during your interview, you need to say the name of the book a few times. So, this is a different situation because you have Andrea Pass Public Relations on the screen. But if this was audio only, I would have said Andrea Pass Public Relations in a few of my answers. Not too many, but a few.
Sure. There is so many moving parts to what you shared that people don't even think about. And as I learn more about marketing and doing live streaming like this, little things make all the difference, whether you capture people's attention. That you can lose them because the glare on their head, simple as that, right? And not saying the things they should say, or, all those things that we're not aware of, and having your advice and guidance and coaching or whatever and consulting on that could make all the difference in the world. So
yeah, I think it's interesting. I had a client that I had arranged a virtual book talk, and I went over with the client, make sure you mention the name of your book. And he got into the discussion, and he went on and on about what was in the book, but never said the name of the book. And so at the end, the person interviewing him said, "Is there anything else you'd like to add?" And he said, "Well, thank you for having me." And I'm there watching, and I'm like, and she says, "Anyone have any questions?" So I raised my hand, and she calls on me. I said, "Oh, so-and-so, where could we get?" And I say the name of the book. And so he says, "Oh, it's very important. You can get my book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble," whatever he said. And then I said, "Oh, I'll look that up and share that in the chat with everybody," because he didn't give his call to action. And I think the most important thing, I mean, you're being kind enough to show my website and my email, so my call to action is out there. But for everyone who's doing an interview, what's your call to action? If you're an author, buy my book, without coming right out and saying, I'm selling my book, buy my book. Just say, if you'd love to read my story, please go to name of book at Amazon or whatever it is. If you're selling it on a website, if you have a product, I have a client of mine who has a fruit and vegetable based all natural pancake mix, which wow. I am in love with the pumpkin. It is amazing. And she'll do interviews and she'll say, well, my pancake mix. And I say, you have to say the name. It's called Kicker Feast. You know, she'll post something on her website and I'll say, you still have to say Kicker Feast. And you have to say the name so people remember, buy Kicker Feast pancake mix. So it's a process. And a good public relations person is going to help you make sure you have your messaging and make sure you have your call to action. Because if you don't tell people what you want, you know, buy my cabinet organizer, they're not going to know you can't hang up a picture straight. I know this great product called Go Hang It. So, you know, you're an inventor and you're not sure what you should do in the inventor process. Buy Warren Tuttle's new book, Inventor Confidential. So you have to have a statement so that you know you're talking today about elevating your profits. You can't elevate your profits if you don't have a call to action. You don't have a call to action if you don't have a message.
Absolutely. So
it all goes around.
Public relations, it's not just a press release. It's part of a marketing strategy, integrating that continuity of messaging. You're making sure that they're messaging correctly to the audience that they're trying to influence. And being an entrepreneur, we don't see it many times. We got it here, but we don't see what we're representing. And I think that 30,000 foot elevation or even a down look on it is so important in your marketing. So, having a publicist like yourself or a public relation person, it should be a long-term relationship, not just a one and done type thing. It should be something that you're working with your clients as they grow. You're expanding the reach. You're creating greater influences. You're getting better audiences. You're getting the attention of an ABC local affiliate maybe for the first time. So it's a process. It's part of the game plan that you help them map out the course they're going.
Yeah, I think what's important to note is any PR person that's writing out a strategy for the coming year, that strategy is outdated the minute you print out that piece of paper. So it's all well and good if you have, say, a product that would be good for Valentine's Day and Mother's Day or Father's Day or you know, Christmas, Hanukkah season. That's fine if it's a product that's for a gift. But if it's other things, you don't know what's happening in the world that could be changed. And therefore, you've got to zig and zag and not tell your story the same way. So I think that a strategy is important, but a strategy is not an end-all be-all. A good public relations person will figure out the right way to get the story told, because I might be dealing with a producer today that I've dealt with for years, and tomorrow that producer was fired or left that position. So you've got to be flexible. And I think that a good public relations person knows how to be flexible to make sure that the client is getting the right coverage. But I'm so excited because I have so many clients that I've worked with for years. If they take a break, they're referring me to other people. So that's a great thing because I'm always meeting new people. And there are people I know for years and years and years who, you know, I have a client now who I've known for 15 years. And he said, I'm coming out with a book. I want you to be the public relations person. And here it was. We've just been buddies and we go to conventions together and hang out and, you know, go out for breakfast or dinner or whatever we do. And we're finally working together. So I think relationships are important for business in general, but in public relations, it certainly helps to understand your client a little bit better, where they're coming from, because it's important that I know if there's something in your personal life, because I need to know when I should reach out, not reach out. You know, I had a client that had just an unfortunate situation. So I knew all right, let me just do the work I could do and not bother the client for a few weeks, but I was still getting press coverage without touching base with the client other than emails because I knew there was a family situation. That's what a good public relations person is, a part of your team ongoing.
It's like family in a way. It sounds like,
and you know what? It is because I just look and, my daughter got married at the beginning of COVID. Her wedding was supposed to be March 22nd at a fancy place in New Jersey, which of course did not happen. It was in our backyard on our patio. And, having my clients who know me, were there for me, and colleagues who had met me, through networking and through clients and through the press, it really made it better when I had the support of all of these people, even though I couldn't watch my daughter walk down a long aisle in her wedding gown. And hopefully she will in the coming months. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, how exciting is. So, in parting notes, a parting wisdom or parting thought about public relations, whatever you like to leave this evening with.
Well, I think that a parting note. Okay, I have to think of something wise, but I think the most important thing is I say to everybody who has chosen to watch Elevate Your Profits, Google yourself, and then Google your competitor, and compare notes on talking about yourself or talking about others talking about you. And once you see that your competitor is out there in the press getting press coverage, that should be the big red flag. It's time for you to do public relations. But don't assume that it's not within your budget. Think of what your marketing budget is and lop off a part of it that's going to go to public relations. So I think my parting comments are Google yourself.
I think that is beautiful. That is a great starting point to make a self-assessment of what's going on in and around your messaging, what type of attention you're getting, if you're getting any attention, right?
Yeah,
or
and I think
positive or negative.
Right. And one of the things I would like to, do I have another minute to bring up another point?
No,
oh, good.
No
you are ready for public relations when you have a working website, you have social media pages set up and active. You don't have to post every day. You could post 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be every single day. And you have a product, service, or book ready to roll. A book, meaning it's coming out on this day in 3 months or whatever. A product, the product will be ready for review on this date. And a business that has a service that you're already servicing a client. You don't need 12, but as long as you have one. So you don't need to be in business for 15 years before you can do PR. You can be in business for 2 days, as long as you have the website, the social media pages, and a product, a book, or a client.
Great advice. Good starting point for self-assessment. My colleague is just, he's watching us from the baseball field. Mark Gassert. Hey, buddy, how you doing? I'm sure we'll have Andrea back on. She's got a wealth of value to bring to the audience in this area of marketing, public relations. So Mark is out there checking in. I just want to recognize Diana Ogle. She's a business colleague of mine. She does, what would you call it? She writes ads for radio and that type of stuff for her clients. So Diana Ogle, thanks for jumping on, Diana. Sandy is out there. She's a personal development coach, and she's out there. So they've been sharing this information out to their audiences. So we appreciate Sandy for jumping on, Diana. And of course, Mark, make him hit the ball, Mark, okay? He's an umpire, so that's an inside joke there. Make him hit the ball. But Andrea, I really appreciate you, meeting you through our networking, and networking is such an important element of business. And
public relations.
We're here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say networking is public relations, because when you're on these networking calls and you're networking with people, your elevator pitch Short and sweet. What do? When you're putting something in a chat, make sure there's no typos. Make sure it's the information that's giving a little blurb. So the way you appear on a networking meeting, think of it as you're going live on television or on a video cast. So everything about networking is public relations. So I'm so glad that we met through networking.
Yes. So, and here to support you and what you do to help other entrepreneurs, other businesses, authors. I mean, I'm just looking at your bio here, and it's quite impressive. And I just encourage everybody to go to your website to learn more about you, to reach out to you via email or through your contact page on your website. And Andrea, I really appreciate you coming on, giving some real good quality insight of what public relations is and how it should be part of your marketing strategy, business development plans, all those things to be successful long term. So I appreciate what you shared. And it caused me, I'm going to go Google myself.
It was very interesting. I was on a networking call one day, and someone said, well, it's really important, that you have the right image on social media. And this is someone who I met once, and I went to this talk he was giving. And he said, all right, I'm going to Google Andrea. And he shares the screen. And I'm saying, this is not going to work out well for the rest of the people on this call. He Googles me, and of course, here's this interview and this thing, and this award and all this stuff about me. And he says, oh, I shouldn't have picked you because you're out there and you're doing everything you need to do. And I was like, I felt bad for the other people, because you need to apply for awards. Awards are great. You get great press coverage when you get an award, and you can mention that award on and on and on. So I think that if you're Googling yourself, also recognize that you should be out there speaking, just like you actually had a speaking event last week that unfortunately I couldn't attend. I had a client meeting that went late, but that's important. Be out there. You got to be in it to win it.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Andrea. I'm going to put you back in the green room, so hang on there. It's been a pleasure to have you on. You gave great information for the audience out there. They know how to get a hold of you, and we're here to support you in everything you do and in your business. So we hope to have you back again.
Thank you, Tom. It was great being on with you.
All right. Thank you much. I'm going to put you in the green room. Well, elevate your profits. Great information there to give a better perspective of what public relations is, how to incorporate it, what to look for in public relations, why to have somebody promote your product and your business or your service or your book from a third set of eyes that get you in a marketplace in a much stronger way. So that's the premise of Elevate Your Profits. Bringing people in like Andrea that has a great track record and knowledge and wisdom. I highly encourage you to reach out to her to see how she can service your needs in the area of public relations and your marketing. So with that all said, next week guest is a friend of mine and business colleague here in the Milwaukee area, Chuck Harris, a business consultant. He's going to come in and really rock the boat on what he teaches to bring business owners in alignment to their goals. And he is a troubleshooter, and he will point 3 things out every business owner should know. We'll keep that a secret. But next Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Chuck Harris, business consultant here in Milwaukee. He has turned businesses around from almost bankruptcy to being $250 million a year businesses. So turn on your notifications. You do not want to miss Chuck Harris. His advice as a business consultant. Great nuggets will come from it. With that all said, everybody have a great evening. Andrea, stay tight here, but we're going to be signing out.